Welcome to Interview Skills, a webinar brought to you by Nova Scotia Works Employment Solutions Society. I'm Emily and I will be your presenter today. We'll discuss the purpose of an interview, types of interviews, preparing, interview questions, before, during, and after the interview, references, other interview tips, and more on our services. This knowledge will help you to be successful in the interview process. Let's discuss the purpose of a job interview. Interviews are a two-way exchange of information. The interviewer has three underlying questions that they want answered. They want to know, can you do the job? You've been screened in if you've been offered an interview. That means that based on what the employer knows about you from your application, they believe that you can do the job. Now, in the interview, it's time to show them. They also want to know, will you do the job? So, as mentioned, this is the time to prove to the employer that you have the skills to perform the duties attached to the position. They also want to know, will you be a good addition to the organization or company? Now the employer is looking beyond skills and qualifications to get a sense of whether or not you will be a good addition to their team. There are different types of interviews, and many are actually a blend of different types. We'll discuss some different types here as well as some common questions. Here are some general interview questions that you're likely to encounter. For example, why should we hire you? A general response would be something like, I believe I would be a valuable member to your team. I have all the qualities and skills that you are looking for this position. I'm a fast learner and a good team member. I can work with less supervision. I can work individually or with a team. And I believe I would be an asset to your organization or company if you give me that opportunity to show you. Another common question, what are your greatest strengths? You might say something like, one of my strengths is my commitment to my duties, my achievement, and my employer's satisfaction. I stick with my promises and assignments. I have excellent leadership skills. I'm very organized. You might ask, are there any particular skills that you're looking for? Another common question is, what are your weaknesses? You want to say something that you can also spin in a positive way, but is a weakness so that you are answering the question. For example, you might say, a weakness I have is that I tend to become slightly impatient with myself when I have difficulty learning a new process or procedure. This impatience, however, has forced me to work above and beyond to correct the situation. So my impatience pushes me to excel. So, of course, in all of these are very generalized answers, and you will want to change them somewhat to make them specific to you, the way you speak, your talents, and the position and organization that you're applying for. But these are some general responses that are far from adequate. So those are some common questions that you will hear in just about any type of interview. But what are those types? Well, we have what we call behavior-based interviews, group interviews, panel interviews, meal or social, telephone, impromptu, or online. There's probably some more, but these are the main ones. And sometimes you will find a blend of different types. One common format is a panel interview. This is when you are interviewing in front of multiple people. Usually these are representatives from the company or organization's human resources, management, or other employees, or perhaps members of the board of directors. Panel interviews are conducted by some companies to save some time and to get the collective opinion of the panel about the candidate. Each member of the panel may be responsible for asking you questions that are relevant to their position, or they just might take turns asking you questions. Some people do find this format of interview especially nerve-wracking because they are often alone in front of multiple people. Try to remember that you have practiced and remind yourself that you are both prepared and qualified. Try to focus on one person at a time. So if somebody is speaking to you, try to look at them or in their general direction. And when responding to their question, look primarily at them or attempt to look around the room a little bit, but then back at them. Don't worry too much. Don't get too much in your head about it. But if you're having difficulty thinking about where to look, looking at the person who spoke to you most recently is usually a good bet. Another format is the meal or social interview. This is a way to test your social skills, which may be a prerequisite for your job. It might be important for you in this new position to take out, say, customers for dinner. And so it's important for the interviewers to see how you function in a similar situation. And it also may tell them how you fit with the rest of their team, or at least some of their team. So this also presents you with an opportunity to ask questions about the company. Just about every interview, really any interview, will give you an opportunity, usually at the end, to ask questions. In a group interview, you will most likely be put in a room with other job applicants. And in many cases, applicants will be applying for the same position as you. During a candidate group interview, you will be asked to listen to information about the company and position, most likely, and you may be asked to answer questions or participate in group exercises. Group interviews are a way to begin the screening process, and they're a good way for the company to compare and contrast candidates, as they'll have them together in the same space at the same time when they're making their decision. And it will also demonstrate how each individual works as part of a team and interacts with other people under pressure. Companies use the group interview format as a way of screening candidates for the job opening, and during a job interview, the employer can see how you interact with not only them, but other candidates who may become your colleagues. This gives candidates the chance to quickly learn about the company and see if they want to work there. And it also tells the interviewers a lot about the candidates. You may have a telephone interview. Sometimes these are used as a pre-screening before an in-person interview, or sometimes the entire interview process is done in this way. It minimizes expenses, especially making things easier for out-of-town candidates. Ensure that you brush up on telephone etiquette and have very good telephone skills. This is also a common way to conduct an interview when much of the position has to do with telephone skills, but it can be used for just about any position. You may find yourself in an informal, unstructured, unplanned, spur of the moment job interview. In any case, you must immediately in this situation go into interview mode, despite the casual nature of the environment and perhaps it being a bit of a surprise. But keep in mind, especially when you are handing out resumes in person, that this is a possibility. So you won't be so surprised if this happens. So, as mentioned, this can occur when you are dropping off resumes physically and the employer is on site and wants to talk to you right away. You may meet a potential employer during a networking social occasion and find that they're hiring for a position that you may be interested in, or you may be contacted by a recruiter when you were not expecting it. More employers are starting and continuing to use computer and video technology to conduct job interviews. It's efficient and cost effective. Online interviews are a simple and effective way to interview candidates for employment. Some companies use online web-based systems or video interviewing technology, and this way the employer has the opportunity to play back the interview if they want or need to, helping them make their decisions. These kinds of interviews are more common in today's world and allow for interviews over distance. Here's some more tips about interview questions and preparation. Now we'll discuss some various types of interview questions. Some examples are general, which are to learn more about you and to assess your fit or appropriateness to join the organization or company in this particular role for which you are applying. Behavioral, focus on past behavior as a predictor of future performance. Situational, focus on problem-solving skills. And we must be aware of and watch out for illegal and unethical questions. General questions give the interviewer the opportunity to learn more about you and are designed to assess your ability to fit in with and or be a positive addition to the team. A couple of common examples of questions include, tell me about yourself. The purpose of this is to learn why they should or should not hire you. They may be subtly encouraging you to reveal any personal concerns that may interfere with your work performance. They will want to learn a little bit about your background and personality. Here's some suggestions. Briefly touch on the following: your qualifications and experience, especially in direct relation to this position, your attributes, including your ability to get along with others, and some appropriate personal information to indicate stability and a well-rounded character. Another common question is, what interests you about working for us? The purpose is to find out what you know and like about the organization and to try to see if you would stay. They want to see if your work qualifications fit their requirements and their approach. Some suggestions for this question include, describe what you know about the organization and have done some research in advance. If you can, honestly compliment the company or organization on such points as its reputation, service, product, location, quality, appearance, and so on. Indicate your interest and the care you have put into collecting background information. Make primarily you statements, not I need statements. This indicates your concern is on the employer's needs and paints you in a more flattering light. In behavior-based interviewers, the interviewer will want to assess how you handle a situation. Instead of asking, how would you behave, they will likely ask, how did you behave? They will want examples of past behavior. Many people believe that past behavior is considered a strong predictor of future performance. So this is why they will want examples from your past. So do come prepared with some anecdotes. So, how to prepare for a behavior-based interview. Here are some examples of behavioral-based interview questions. You may be asked, tell me about a time when you dealt with a customer complaint. Can you tell us about a work situation where you recognized a problem and took action to correct it? Describe a group situation where you were the only person who disagreed with a point of view or action. And then for most of these, you will be asked, How did you handle it? What were the results? The STAR method, which stands for situation, task, action, result, will serve you well in behavior-based interviews and beyond. So, this is a method used to analyze the skills and qualities required for success in a job and to identify candidates who have demonstrated these skills in past experiences. Many of the questions asked in this type of interview will start with, tell me about a time when, da 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 da. The STAR interview technique gives you a simple framework to use when crafting your answers. So, you begin with the situation. Open with a brief description of the situation and context of the success story. You'll want to include brief details about who, what, where, when, and how, or at least most of these, as appropriate. Secondly, the task. So you'll describe the task you were responsible for in that situation. Be specific and concise. Make sure to highlight any specific challenges or successes. Third is the action. This is the part where you describe exactly what you did. How did you complete the task you were assigned? And fourth, the result. Close with the result of your efforts. Share what outcome your actions had and how specifically your actions contributed to that outcome. What was accomplished? What did you learn? And what were the results? You will want to choose stories that have positive end results and, of course, that fit the question that you were initially asked. You'll probably want to pre-prepare some situation responses in advance if possible. Situational interview questions are used to assess your problem-solving and collaborative abilities, usually using hypothetical situations. Some examples that you may be asked. If you know your boss is wrong about something, what would you do? How would you respond to a customer who is unhappy with the product? What would you do if a coworker isn't pulling their weight? How would you organize a file directory system on our computer network? A lot of these test your ability to creatively think on your feet, as well as to assess whether or not you have the knowledge that is required to do the job. However, if you are asked a question and you're not certain what you would do, it is acceptable to respond that you would consult with management or a coworker or an employee handbook. It's better to admit that you don't know something and say that you would search out the proper resources than to bluff. Be particularly conscious of negative interview questions. What are these? They're questions that are negatively framed, which are designed to prompt the person being interviewed to provide a negative response. So how should you respond? Honestly, to a degree, and keep your response positive. Of course, don't be dishonest. We'll get into some examples. One frequently asked question is, what did you like least about your last job? What not to do? Do not badmouth your former employer under any circumstances. What to do? Find something relatively small that would not be an issue in your new potential job that was previously an issue to some degree. For example, you're interviewing for a job where you know the hours are 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Your previous job was rotating shifts and included weekends. A good answer in this case would be, the stability of a regular schedule is appealing. after the lack of routine, which accompanied shift work in my last position. Another negative question, what is your biggest flaw? Do not think of the very worst thing about yourself. Do think of a flaw and then spin it into a positive. So an example could be, sometimes I tend to procrastinate large projects. I tend to do the small tasks first and put off larger ones. However, as the deadline approaches for large projects, I find myself suddenly especially motivated and consistently turn in high quality projects on time. I guess I work well under pressure. Of course, personalize these to you and your situation, but these are just some examples of how you can turn a negative interview question into something positive. It's important to be aware of illegal and unethical interview questions. Of course, these vary from place to place and time to time, so I'll speak about the current laws as I know them here in Nova Scotia, Canada. Illegal questions are ones that ask about age, race, color, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion, disabilities, marital or family status. There are some gray areas, including that a potential employer can ask you if you have the ability to do the tasks required, and the response for you may touch on medical issues which impact your ability to do work. If you think you might run into this situation, I encourage you to talk to your case manager or seek out further information about the Disability Labor Rights Act. Another time when it is allowable to ask a person's status in a minority group, for example, is if they are doing so in order to attempt to be a more equitable, equal opportunity employer. So in such a case, identifying as a member of a marginalized group may actually help you to get the job. But in this case, it must be framed, the question must be framed as optional, and you are allowed legally to say that you do not want to identify as such, even if you are a member of such a group. That's a fine answer. It's totally your right to choose not to identify. But what are your options if you are asked an illegal or unethical question? One is to answer the question, but to respond to what you believe is the underlying intent. Another is to refuse to answer the question. So here's an example. Are you planning to have children? If an employer asks you this or another illegal question, first of all, you want to consider that it tells you a lot about them. It says they have either not taken the time to learn the laws, which is actually their responsibility as employers, and implies they're likely not an ethical employer. Or it says they know the law and have chosen to break it, which again shows they're likely not an ethical employer. You may want to ask yourself, do you want to work for an employer like this? However, you may really just need a job and choose to answer. So for the example of the question I mentioned, are you planning to have children? Well, this is a highly illegal and unethical question. It may reflect that the client employer does not want to go through the process of dealing with maternity leaves, as is the law. They are essentially questioning your commitment to your work life. But you are well within your rights to have children, and you do not need to inform your employer or potential employer of your intent to do so. You're well within your rights to choose to answer, and you may say something, if you choose to answer, you may say something like, I'm very committed to my work and able to balance my personal and professional commitments. So, as such, you're speaking to at least some of the underlying concern that this question is about. Or you may wish to imply that you know this question is not okay. You could say something like, I'm a very private person when it comes to my family life. But rest assured, I'm very committed to my work and able to balance my personal and professional commitments. In this way, you've been respectful, but also drawn a boundary. Here's some more tips for before, during, and after the interview. How to prepare. Research as much about the company as you reasonably can. Review the job description and try to anticipate possible questions and prepare answers that show how you are a good fit. Rehearse your answers and perhaps even practice with a friend. Make a list of your qualifications and match those with the job description. Prepare your clothing, and you may want to also prepare an interview portfolio. So you'll want to bring with you your resume, your cover letter, any other application forms that you sent in. You will want a copy of the job description. You'll want directions to get there. You may have jotted down some possible responses to probable questions. Ensure you're well dressed. Always be neat and clean. And my rule of thumb for how to dress for a job interview is try to figure out how people at that job dress and then dress just a little bit more formally if possible. But the most important thing is that you're neat, tidy, on time, friendly, and prepared. Arrive 5 to 10 minutes early. Ensure you know where you're going. If you are uncertain, you may want to visit the location beforehand to ensure that you don't get lost. Have a positive attitude. Dress appropriately. I mentioned my rule of thumb earlier, which is to try to figure out how most people dress at that location of employment and then to dress a step above. However, the most important thing is that you are neat, clean, and tidy. Keep your answers concise and to the point. Ask questions. There will be a time at the end of the interview, usually, when you will be asked if you have any questions. You should always have questions. Having questions shows that you are sincerely interested, and it's also a great opportunity to learn more about the position and the work environment that you should not pass up. Answer questions honestly, and good luck. Interviewer or interviewers will want to verify the information on your resume and find out how relevant your past work experience is to this new potential job. They'll want to learn more about your qualifications and experience and what you can bring to the position. They'll judge if you're suitable for the position. They'll want to learn more about your past accomplishments. They'll want to see how motivated and committed you are. They'll also want to see how you respond to stressful situations. And since for most people, an interview is an inherently, at least slightly stressful situation, then you will be showing them how you respond to stressful situations by how you respond to the interview. They will also have the opportunity to assess your communication skills. During the interview, make a direct link between your skills and accomplishments in the job you're applying for. Minimize any potential negatives, such as employment gaps, inconsistent work history, and other things, especially if asked. We'll discuss this a little further later. Demonstrate good communication and interpersonal skills. Highlight what you know about the job and company, and have done some research prior to the interview. Relate your career goals to the job and organization. Ask appropriate and useful questions at the end of the interview to learn more about whether or not this is a good fit for you. Here's a few more tips. Remember that the interview starts the minute you walk through the door, so be sure to be kind and friendly to everyone, from the receptionist to the interviewers and everyone in between whom you may encounter, and ensure that you are giving a good impression. We used to say give a firm handshake, but in most places we're not doing handshakes anymore, so ensure that you smile and greet the interviewers and other staff in a friendly way. Make eye contact if possible for you, and leave your cell phone either outside in your car at home or just turn it off. Be respectful, professional, and polite, and have prepared appropriate questions in advance of the interview. Some people aren't sure what to ask when it comes their turn to ask questions. Now remember, interviews are a two-way exchange of information, and this is too good an opportunity to pass up. If you are interested in this position, this is your time to ask them questions, the responses to which might really make or break your decision. So here's some really good ones. Can you elaborate on the day-to-day responsibilities this job entails? Or more simply, what does an average day look like in this role? Secondly, what are the characteristics of someone who would succeed in this role? Third, what's the most important thing I could do to help within the first 90 days of my employment? Fourth, what are some of the challenges you've seen people in this role struggle with before? Fifth, if I was in this job, how would my performance be measured? Sixth, what does the career path tend to look like for someone in a role like this? Seventh, what other functions or departments does this team work with more often? Eight, similarly to one, what does your job look like day to day, and how would you anticipate working with this person in this role? 9. What do you like best about working here? There's a few additions or twists on these that I personally like. For example, are there duties that I would be responsible for if hired in this role that have not been discussed and are not on the job description? If so, what are they? And approximately what percentage of my time would they take up? Asking this question can help you avoid some potentially unpleasant surprises and assist you in making the most informed decision possible. All of these questions are designed to help you make an informed decision because remember, it's not just whether or not they want you to work for them, it's also whether you want to work for them. Following the interview, follow up with a thank you note, letter, or email within 24 to 48 hours. You can use the thank you letter to insert any information you may have forgotten to say in the interview. Don't go overboard with this, but say, for example, you leave the interview wishing you had added a point to a question. You can find a way to subtly and politely insert that into your thank you note. Internally, assess your interview performance, but don't be too hard on yourself. And if you are asked for your references, notify them right away. Speaking of references, ensure you choose appropriate references. They should usually be work references and those who you know will speak well of you and You should have recently asked their permission to be a reference. Always ask permission. You may wish to give your references a current copy of your resume and potentially even a copy of the job description for which you're applying. This can help them best speak to the relevant information about you when they are asked to vote for you. Formatting is important. We have on site a template that people use to give out their reference information. So you can always ask us for that. We're happy to share it. And remember, unless it is explicitly requested that you include your references on your initial application, which is rare, the reference document is separate and should be given when requested, usually after the interview. To contact us by email with general inquiries, email info@empsolutions.ca. And to contact us regarding workshops and webinars, events at empsolutions.ca. And you can visit our website at www.empsolutions.ca and also our Facebook page at Nova Scotia Works. You can visit or call our locations in Bridgewater at 215 Dominion Street, phone number 902-543-2479. At our Chester location, 3785 Highway 3 in Chester, our Hubbards location, 10 Point Richard Green Lane in Hubbards, and our Liverpool location, 176 Main Street in Liverpool, and that phone number is 902-356-2039. Our toll-free number is 866-711-0411, and call ahead of time, especially for the Chester and Hubbards locations, please. Thank you. If you're unfamiliar with Nova Scotia Works Employment Solutions Society, or even if you are, stay tuned for a moment because we have so much to offer. Our mission is to enhance the employability of all individuals in our community through learning and inclusive services. That means we're here to help you. So feel free to come by our centers to pick up informational materials, ask questions, use our services and technology for your career search, and receive helpful assistance from our staff. We have many services available free of charge to both registered and non-registered clients. In fact, all our services are free of charge. These include regular presentations, both in person and online, and recorded like this one, on a variety of employment, wellness, and education related topics. Access to computers, printers, and fax for job search purposes. Assistance with many aspects of your job search, including creating your resume and cover letter, interview preparation, navigating career transitions, planning your career path, referrals to other helpful community services and programs, disability and accommodation supports, learning about local labor markets and how these impact you, accessing retraining programs, work experience programs, or exploration of entrepreneurship. Consider registering to take advantage of our case management service. Our case managers are dedicated, kind, respectful professionals who are eager to help you realize your goals. You and your case manager are a team. You work together and you're the one always in the driver's seat. Think of the case manager as a helpful guide who will assist you to determine and reach your goals. You're always empowered and in charge of the process. Even if you feel confident that you know how to job search, their assistance and support can still be very valuable. Your case manager can help you to determine if you're eligible for various funding programs which you may be interested in, and they can also assist you to navigate those application processes. They also often know about jobs that aren't posted publicly and can help you to work out any uncertainty you may have regarding where you want to go and how best to get there. Even the best writers, including of resumes and cover letters, sometimes make little errors, and having a second or third set of eyes on your documents can make or break an application. Also, as I mentioned, all our services are free, so sign up today. You have nothing to lose and so very much to gain. So contact us at Employment Solutions Society for additional assistance. Thanks so much. I enjoyed our time together and good luck out there. You're now more prepared.